That rotor's not supposed to be spinning. Liam Gray hadn't meant to say it out loud, but the words slipped out low, instinctive, as his eyes locked on the blinking red alert behind the reinforced glass. The night shift hallway was otherwise silent, just the hum of fluorescent lights and the soft squeak of his mop against polished concrete. It was 2:13 a.m. at SkyTide Dynamics, and no one was supposed to be in the operations wing. He dropped the mop without thinking. A dull beep echoed as he scanned his employee badge against the control room lock. The panel blinked. Access granted off hours. Maintenance permitted. The door slid open with a hiss. Inside, the air was colder, cleaner, sterile like a hospital. The room was dark, but not empty lines of blue light pulsed from the wall-length servers and touchscreen panels. Screensaver flight simulations looped endlessly across the main monitor. But Liam didn't need simulations. He saw the problem the moment he stepped inside. The AI test rig was active. The rotor on Drone Unit 07 was cycling erratically, a red warning flashing beneath it. Drift, rotor lag. That warning wasn't supposed to exist. He knelt beside the diagnostics port. No one had been in this room for hours. No one, absolutely no one, had flagged the drift. And if this had made it to the morning demo... Liam exhaled slowly. People could get hurt. He reached for the tools without hesitation. It wasn't part of his job. Not anymore. But this wasn't about a job. This was instinct. Muscle memory. A reflex built over years in places the world forgot. 10 minutes later, the rotor stopped stuttering. The warning disappeared. Liam didn't smile. Didn't nod at a job well done. He just stood up, wiped his hands on the rag tucked in his back pocket, and stepped away. On the desk, he scribbled a note on a sticky pad, Rotor 07 lag drift corrected. Recommend recalibration before morning demo. He signed it simply, LG. Then he stepped out into the hallway, picked up his mop, and continued down the corridor like nothing had happened. Behind him, above the doorframe, a discreet security camera continued recording. By 8:02 a.m. morning, sunlight spilled through the wraparound glass windows of the executive floor. In her corner office, Sienna Rowe never drank coffee sitting down. She paced left to right, heels echoing against the marble. Her black suit caught the sunlight like a blade. Her team knew better than to interrupt her morning rhythm, unless the world was on fire. Today, the world was smoldering. "Are you absolutely sure?" she asked, gripping her coffee tighter. Jordan, her lead systems analyst, nodded nervously. "Yes, ma'am. There was unauthorized access to the AI control room last night. 2:13 a.m. System logs show a non-technical ID badge was used. Name Liam Gray. Janitorial staff." Sienna narrowed her eyes. And what exactly was touched Unit 07? The rotor diagnostics. Jordan hesitated. "But here's the strange part. It's fixed. Perfectly. Better than our team's baseline calibration." Sienna turned sharply. "Are you telling me someone with a mop and a badge just wandered into my control room and outperformed my engineers?" Jordan swallowed. "We have it on video." Her voice was ice. "Pull him in. Now." Liam sat still in the center chair of the small windowless HR room. The space was just uncomfortable enough to be intentional. His hands rested calmly on his knees. Same gray uniform. Sleeves rolled to his forearms. A faint line of grease still marked his thumb. His expression unreadable. Across from him, Sienna sat like a judge behind a gavel. "Do you know why you're here?" she asked. Liam nodded. "I accessed the AI operations room. Do you understand that's a restricted zone, Mr. Gray?" "Yes." "Then help me understand what gave you the brilliant idea to play technician at 2 in the morning." His gaze didn't waver. "Rotor drift on Unit 07. I heard the alert. Through the wall." She blinked. "Through the wall." It was subtle, but the frequency was distinct. I recognized it. Sienna folded her arms. "You recognized it?" He nodded. "Rotor lag like that can torque the tail assembly mid-flight. If it fails during a banked turn, the aircraft could spiral out." Her voice cooled further. "And you know this because—" "I used to work in rotor dynamics," where a long pause, then quietly, places that don't show up on LinkedIn. Jordan shifted uncomfortably in the back. Sienna held up a hand, silencing him. She leaned in, her voice low and deliberate. "I don't care if you rebuilt the Blackbird in your garage. You don't touch my AI. Ever." Understood. Liam's jaw flexed. "I wasn't trying to interfere." "Oh, but you did. You accessed secure systems, bypassed protocols, and tampered with a live demo model hours before presentation. You could have destroyed everything. I fixed something your team missed." Sienna rose from her chair, voice like a blade sheathed in silk. "This company was built on precision, on protocol. I don't care what you think you know. You're a janitor. You're not part of the design. You're not part of the team. You clean the floor. That's it." Liam stood calmly. "Then I'll collect my things. Security will escort you." He paused, met her eyes one last time. His voice was quiet but firm. "You built your sky out of code and pride, Ms. Rowe. Just hope it holds when the wind hits." And with that, he walked out. At 10:12 a.m. down in the lower-level break room, Liam opened his locker. No rush, no anger, just quiet movements like a man who'd left places before. Behind him, Carl leaned against the vending machine, arms folded. "You're not even gonna fight it?" Carl asked. Liam shook his head. "Not my war." Carl scoffed. "What the hell did you even do, man?" Liam glanced over, voice calm. "I tried to stop a rotor from killing someone." Carl blinked. "Come again." But Liam was already gone, and upstairs in the security archive, the footage still played unnoticed by most, except one pair of curious eyes. In engineering. Sienna Rowe didn't believe in second chances, not in business, not in engineering, and certainly not in people. She stood before a 12-foot LED screen in the executive command room, arms crossed, watching the live countdown for the morning's demo flight. Every detail had been triple-checked. Every rotor, every line of code flawless. At least that's what she thought. Until last night. Until the security footage showed a janitor walking into her sacred control room like he'd built the place. "Back it up," she ordered, voice flat and sharp. Jordan, standing beside her with a trembling tablet, hesitated. "We've already watched this 3 times. Back. It. Up." The screen flicked to 2:13 a.m. A janitor in gray. Calm. Precise. No hesitation. He scanned in, walked to the rig, dropped to his knees like he'd done it 100 times, and there. He opened the diagnostics panel, exposing the heart of her AI rotor system like a surgeon cracking open a chest. No schematics. No manual. Just hands steady, deliberate, movements smooth as breath. The warning disappeared. He stood, wrote a note, walked out. Sienna didn't move. Jordan cleared his throat. "Ma'am." The correction he made was valid. Actually better than what we had planned. "Say that again," she said quietly. "I ran the simulations this morning." His adjustment realigned the drift tolerance by a factor of 0.00203. Jordan hesitated, then added, "That's military grade. We don't even teach that level of precision anymore." Sienna stared at the screen. Military grade. The words left a metallic taste in her mouth. Where is he now? Left the building an hour ago. Security processed the dismissal. Did he say anything? Jordan looked down. Just one thing. Said he wasn't trying to interfere. He just didn't want someone to die. Sienna turned away from the screen. Her voice dropped lower. "Get me Mary, from HR." Mary Ann Preston had worked in HR for 20 years. Nothing surprised her anymore. Not the layoffs, not the politics, not even the egos. But this was different. She laid the file on Sienna's desk without a word. Sienna opened it slowly. Name: Liam Gray. Position: Janitorial Services. Hire date: 8 months ago. References: none previous employment, N.A. criminal check, clean education, emergency contact. Gray Eliza daughter. That was it. A file thinner than a napkin. No resume, Sienna asked. Marianne shook her head. Came through a contract agency. Requested night shifts only. Never late, never complained, never asked for time off. Most staff didn't even know his name. Sienna tapped the file once. There's something off about him. Off how Marianne asked. He walked into a live AI rotor rig like he'd built it, then walked out like it meant nothing. Marianne studied her face. You're not used to being wrong about people. I'm not wrong, Sienna snapped. Right, Marianne said gently. You're just adjusting your understanding. Sienna's eyes narrowed. What are you implying? Nothing. Marianne stood. Just that sometimes the quietest people carry the heaviest stories, and the ones we overlook are often the ones we should have been paying attention to all along. She left the room. Sienna stayed seated, fingers resting on the thin file. Still, unmoving, thinking. Benji Zhao, lead drone programmer and walking embodiment of caffeine, was halfway through an energy drink when he heard the click of Sienna's heels. He sat up fast. Ms. Rowe, didn't expect you down here. I need something. She set her eyes on the simulation bay. Of course. What is it? Pull the rotor drift logs for Unit 07. Every millisecond. Every adjustment. Benji frowned. We already cleared the fault, but sure. His fingers flew across the keyboard. What exactly are we looking for? Sienna didn't answer. Her gaze lingered on the simulation room. The same one where Liam had stood the night before. The same one where he'd touched her machine without shaking. There's a story, she said quietly, in the way someone touches machinery. Some people poke, others pry. But the ones who know, they move like the system is breathing. Benji paused. Are we still talking about code no? She said softly. We're talking about control, about knowing what can't be taught. The sky over Seattle stretched wide and gray as Sienna stood alone on the rooftop observation deck, wind brushing her face. Far above the city skyline, a test drone hovered steady, precise, perfect. Her phone buzzed. A message from Jordan Unit 07, ready for final pre-flight check. No errors. She didn't respond. Instead, her mind replayed Liam's words. You built your sky out of code and pride, Ms. Rowe. Just hope it holds when the wind hits. She hated how much it stuck, not because it was rude, because it was true. Her sky was beautiful, clean, automated, perfect. But it had no soul. Not like the way Liam looked at that rotor, not like the way he listened to it. A janitor didn't move like that. No, someone else did. Someone who used to fly. Later that afternoon, after the offices had emptied and the fluorescent lights dimmed, a junior systems engineer named Maddie Nguyen slipped into the restricted security archive on sublevel 2. She wasn't supposed to be there, but curiosity has a way of cracking through protocol. She fast-forwarded through the same security footage from last night, paused, rewound, zoomed in. There, right as Liam opened the diagnostics panel, his sleeve shifted, and on his wrist, just for a second, was a tattoo. Faded, almost invisible, an emblem. U.S. Army Aviation Regiment. Maddie's eyes widened. She tapped into her encrypted chat window. Find me everything on Liam Gray. I think we just fired someone who used to fly Blackhawks. The rain had come early to Tacoma. It painted Liam Gray's apartment windows in silver streaks, blurring the parking lot below into a soft watercolor of headlights and shadows. Inside, the smell of warm oatmeal and crayons hung in the air like a quiet memory. Eliza sat cross-legged on the living room rug, a box of colored pencils scattered around her like confetti. Her tongue peeked out the corner of her mouth as she drew a helicopter-long tail boom, spinning Rotor's little stick figures inside. She'd started adding faces to the figures lately, but today they were blank. Liam leaned against the kitchen doorway, holding a mug of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago, watching her like she was the only steady thing in a world he no longer understood. Looks like you're building a fleet, he said softly. Eliza looked up, eyes bright. "This one's you," she said, pointing to the figure at the controls. "And this one's me. We're flying together." Liam's throat tightened. He forced a smile. "You gave me the pilot's seat, huh?" "You're the best pilot in the world," she said without hesitation. He knelt beside her, running a thumb gently over the drawing. "I used to be." "You still are," she said, as if that settled it. Liam didn't answer. He walked to the window and stared out at the rain carving silent paths down the glass. His reflection stared back leaner than it used to be, more lined, the uniform of a janitor instead of a flight suit. Hands that once gripped cyclic and collective now gripping a mop. Eliza's voice drifted up from the floor. "Daddy, did you really save people?" He turned. "Who told you that Carl downstairs said you were a hero? He said you flew into dangerous places and brought people back." She looked at him with eyes too old for 6 years. "Is it true?" Liam's jaw tightened. "People like stories," he said quietly. "Sometimes they get the details wrong. That's not an answer." He sat down beside her again. The drawing between them felt heavier now. "I did my job," he said finally. "I brought people home. Not always all of them. Not always whole." Eliza tilted her head. "Then why'd you stop?" He stared at the crayon rotors spinning circles on the page. "Because sometimes bringing people home doesn't mean you get to go home yourself." She frowned. "I don't understand." He smiled, eyes wet. "You don't have to baby." "Not yet." The Skytide Dynamics building was a world of glass and steel, all clean lines and empty corridors after dark. Liam moved through it like a ghost. His bucket wheels squeaked softly. He liked it that way. Invisible. Unnoticed. The night didn't ask questions. As he wiped down the executive wing's glass doors, memories slipped in like smoke through a crack. Afghanistan. A downed Black Hawk burning on the desert floor, rotor wash thumping against his helmet, the weight of a wounded soldier heavier than his own armor, the radio screaming for liftoff, his co-pilot yelling they couldn't, the decision, the medal, the funeral, the voicemail from Sarah the night she died. He pressed the rag harder against the glass until his knuckles went white. 3 years ago, the call came while he was still on base. A car accident. Rain-slick highway outside Tacoma. Sarah was 8 months pregnant. They tried. She didn't make it. The baby might. By the time he reached the hospital, Sarah was gone. Eliza was 5 pounds and fighting in an incubator. Tubes everywhere. His hands shook so badly a nurse had to guide him to the chair. He whispered to the tiny bundle of wires and skin, "I've got you, buddy. I'm here." He left the Army 2 weeks later. Couldn't sit in a cockpit without hearing Sarah's voice saying she couldn't wait for him to come home. Couldn't risk Eliza becoming another voicemail. He took the first job that didn't ask questions. Night shift janitor at an aerospace company no one paid attention to. It let him bring Eliza when daycare fell through. It gave him a paycheck and anonymity, a way to disappear without disappearing from her life. Carl, from floor 2, sat across from him in the break room peeling the plastic off a vending machine sandwich. "You know," Carl said, mouth half full, "they're saying upstairs you're some kind of hacker." Liam gave a soft huff of a laugh. "I'm not a hacker." Carl squinted. "Then what are you?" Liam rinsed his coffee mug in the sink. His silence was its own kind of answer. Carl shook his head. "You're the only janitor I've met who walks like he's clearing corners." Liam shrugged. Old habits. Across the city, Sienna Rowe sat alone in her sleek downtown apartment. A glass of red wine rested untouched on the marble countertop. City lights spilled across her kitchen like liquid gold. She opened her laptop and pulled up Liam Gray's employee file. Blank spaces stared back at her. No resume. No background. Just 8 months of invisibility. She thought about his eyes during the HR meeting, calm, steady, unshaken, like a man who'd already walked through fire. Marianne's voice echoed in her head. Sometimes the quietest people carry the heaviest stories. Sienna closed the laptop. For the first time in years, she felt something she couldn't code or quantify. Doubt, not in her systems, in herself. Back in Tacoma, Eliza had fallen asleep on the couch with her notebook open on her chest. Her latest drawing was more detailed than ever. Another helicopter, this one mid-flight with scribbled words beneath it. Daddy is a pilot. Liam gently lifted the notebook, smoothing the page. He stared at it for a long time, thumb brushing the crayon lines like they might fade if he looked away. His phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. "We need to talk." MN. He frowned. MN. He didn't respond. He set the notebook back on Eliza's chest, tucked the blanket under her chin, and whispered the same words he'd whispered to her in the NICU 3 years ago. "I've got you, baby. I'm here." Down in the engineering wing of Skytide Dynamics, long past closing hours, Maddie Nguyen sat alone at her workstation. The blue glow of the monitor lit her face as she scrolled through a military registry, breath caught in her throat. There he was, Captain Liam Gray. 2 tours, Medal of Valor, honorable discharge. She stared at the screen and whispered to no one. "What are you doing, mopping floors?" "Captain." The clock on her screen read 11:52 p.m. The demo flight was less than 24 hours away, and the only man who could save it had already been dismissed. Applause rolled through the Skytide Dynamics test hangar like thunder bouncing off steel walls. Reporters, investors, engineers. They filled the viewing stands, eyes wide with expectation, phone screens glowing like stars. Overhead, the Skytide flag fluttered beside the insignias of international partners. The entire space gleamed polished like a promise. And yet, promises are fragile. Sienna Rowe stood at the edge of the runway, headset clipped over her sleek hair, scanning her final checklist. High above in the gray Seattle sky, the demo aircraft hovered, Skytide's crown jewel. Autonomous, elegant, obedient. It should have been perfect. Jordan's voice crackled in her ear. Unit 07 is holding at 2,000 feet, preparing for vector shift demonstration. Copy. Sienna replied, calm in tone, though her stomach churned. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw a janitor's hands moving over her rotor panel, steady, exact. She hated how much it haunted her. Vector shift in 3, 2, 1. The aircraft banked left, smooth as silk. Then it hesitated, just for a breath, but enough for her gut to clench. It corrected itself immediately, continuing its path. No alarms, no system flags, nothing visible. And yet something felt off, like a dancer slipping a beat, then pretending it was part of the routine. "Jordan, run a systems scan," she said. "Already on it, no faults." She exhaled slowly. "Keep watching." Inside the control room, Benji Zhao stared at his screen. Lines of code scrolled like rainfall. "That's weird," he muttered. "What is Maddie Nguyen?" asked, her fingers hovering above her keyboard. Latency spike. 0.4 seconds. Not enough to flag, but it's there. Is it us or them? Benji shook his head. No idea yet. Maddie's heart thumped faster. She hadn't slept either. She'd spent the night staring at a military registry, reading the name Captain Liam Gray until it blurred. And now her system was whispering warnings. She leaned in and whispered. "He tried to warn us." The drone climbed to 3,000 feet for the obstacle course. The crowd applauded politely. Journalists scribbled, cameras rolled. Sienna forced a smile. On the surface, it looked flawless. But beneath Jordan, she asked quietly. "Latency now, 0.6, still below threshold. Override the AI, bring it lower. Attempting manual override." He paused. No response. Her pulse jumped. "Say that again." "Manual override's unresponsive. It's ignoring us. Kill switch locked out." Sienna's blood went cold. Then a voice from behind, low and grim. This isn't a glitch, it's a breach. She turned. Marianne Preston stood in the doorway, her usually calm expression pale. Someone's in your system. Sienna's voice dropped to a whisper. How Marianne didn't blink. Because you built the door. The aircraft banked hard. Too hard. Spectators gasped. Someone dropped a coffee cup. The drone corrected itself again, but the movement was sharper now. Less fluid. Jordan's voice cracked in her headset. Altitude spike 3,500 and climbing. This is not part of the script. Shut it down. I'm trying. Then try harder. Jordan slammed his hand against the console. It's like someone else is flying it. And in a flash, she remembered. Not code, not servers. A man. Gray uniform, steady eyes. She whispered, Liam Gray. Across town, in a modest kitchen, Liam stood at the sink rinsing Eliza's cereal bowl. The news played softly on the little TV by the fridge, cheerful until it wasn't. We interrupt with live footage from SkyTide Dynamics. The autonomous demo aircraft is climbing beyond projected altitude. Liam froze. The screen showed the drone banking sharply over downtown Seattle. His heart slammed once-twice. The bowl cracked in his grip. At the table, Eliza looked up from her drawing. Daddy. He kept his voice steady. Finish your picture, sweetheart. He dried his hands, but his eyes never left the screen. Not again, he murmured. Not again. Back at SkyTide, Benji's screen flared red. Unauthorized protocols detected, he shouted. Not just latency, a full-on backdoor breach. Source, Maddie asked, fingers trembling. Encrypted. Deep. Maddie whispered, We fired the only person who could stop this. Benji looked over. Who? Her voice was barely audible. Liam Gray. He's not a janitor. The drone tilted again, drifting toward the edge of its flight corridor. Reporters stood now, murmuring. Cameras flashed. Sienna ripped off her headset. Clear the crowd, she barked. Now, Marianne moved fast, ushering people back, shouting orders. Engineers followed. Overhead, the drone hummed. Rotors slicing the air with a sound that no longer felt elegant. It felt predatory. Sienna looked up, shielding her eyes. What are you doing up there? She whispered. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered. Who is this? A calm male voice. It's worse than you think. Wait, who the line went dead. Liam stared at the TV. The aircraft was rising still. Eliza tugged his sleeve. Daddy. Is that your work? He turned and knelt beside her, took her small hands in his. Stay here, he said softly. Her eyes searched his face. Are you going to fly again? He hesitated, then nodded. I'm going to help. Will you come back? He smiled. Always. Back at the hangar, the drone began a slow, deliberate turn toward the city skyline. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Engineers shouted into radios. Panic spread like fire. Jordan's voice trembled. We've lost control, Ms. Rowe. Sienna stared up at the sky, her voice barely above a whisper. Then we find someone who hasn't. She had no gods left to pray to, so she prayed to a stranger, to a janitor with a soldier's walk, to a man she had dismissed. Please don't let it fall. The knock came just as Liam zipped Eliza's jacket. She looked up at him, crayon-stained hands clutching a drawing she'd made that morning. Another helicopter flames behind it, a stick figure in the pilot's seat. Stay here, Liam said, gently walking to the door with the kind of wariness that never really leaves a man who's been hunted. He opened it slowly. Sienna Rowe stood in the hallway, drenched from the rain, her dark blazer clinging like a second skin, or maybe like guilt. Her eyes were sharper than before, but this time there was no accusation in them, only fear. I need your help, she said. Liam didn't move, didn't answer, just stared at her. I wouldn't be here if I had any other option, she continued, voice low. You were right. There's a back door in our system. The aircraft's not responding. We've lost control. He leaned against the doorframe, arms folded. You've got an entire tech department. They can't fix it. He exhaled. So now you're asking a janitor to override a military-grade breach. No, she said quietly. I'm asking the man who saw the rotor drift before anyone else did. The man who opened my system like he'd built it from memory. Still, he said nothing. Sienna's gaze shifted past him, and there, just inside, stood Eliza, wide-eyed, clutching her drawing. Sienna's voice cracked. Please. He looked at her. Why now? Why come to me? Because the aircraft is carrying passengers. Liam's jaw tightened. It's a demo. Your press stunt was unmanned. Not this time, she whispered. We added a VIP segment this morning. Kids from the employee daycare. My daughter's on board. The silence that followed felt like the room had stopped breathing. Liam's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes shifted. I told them no, Sienna said. The board wanted PR photos. They swore it was safe. He stepped back, voice low. And now, we can't override it. Whoever built the back door buried it deep. The only anomaly we found was you. Liam looked back at Eliza. She was folding her drawing gently, sliding it into her jacket pocket. Daddy, she said softly. Go help her. He knelt beside her. You remember what we practiced? She nodded. Stay low, stay quiet. Call Mrs. Ford upstairs if I need anything. He kissed her forehead. I'll be back before bedtime. She hugged him tight, then whispered, I'm proud of you. Rain lashed against the windshield as Sienna drove like someone remembering how to be afraid. Liam sat in silence watching the city blur by. I did everything right, she said after a long pause. Wrote every line of code. Built every safeguard. You trusted your logic, Liam murmured. I used to do the same. She glanced sideways. And what changed? He looked out the window. I lost someone who trusted me more than I trusted myself. She didn't ask who. The only sound left was the slow scrape of the wipers across glass. The command bay was chaos when they arrived. Red alerts pulsed on every screen. Radios crackled with clipped, panicked voices. The hangar had been evacuated. Viewing stands were empty. Maddie Nguyen turned at the sound of footsteps and froze. You came, she breathed. Liam nodded once. Show me the setup. Sienna motioned to Jordan, who was mid-argument with an engineer. This is Mr. Gray. Give him access. Full. Jordan blinked. You're seriously giving a janitor root access if he brings that aircraft down, Sienna said coldly. He can have my job, too. Liam approached the console. His fingers moved across the keys, fluent, fluid, exact. Benji Zhao leaned toward Maddie. That's not a janitor. Liam's voice was crisp. I need node access to the legacy firmware. The pre-AI flight logic. Jordan hesitated. That hasn't been touched in years, exactly, Liam said. Which means the hacker probably didn't touch it either. It's a tunnel. We use it to inject an override. Sienna watched him work, heartbeat pounding. Can you do it? Not alone. I need a level 1 clearance and route control of the telemetry stream. He looked at her. That's you. She stepped up beside him. What do I do? Sit down, he said. And this time, don't flinch. Liam's voice shifted into command mode. Sharp, steady, sure. Drone 07 is at 3,900 feet. We're going to inject a thermal spoof into the control matrix. On my mark, you'll trigger a manual sync. One chance. If we miss it, we lose her. Sienna's hand hovered over the keyboard. Ready. 3, 2, mark. She hit the key. The room froze. For a heartbeat, the screens went dark, then flashed green. Override signal accepted. Control regained. The room erupted in cheers. But Liam didn't flinch. Not done yet. They may have built redundancies. I have to bring her down now. Sienna blinked. Her. You name every aircraft you fly, he said. Even if you won't admit it. Liam's fingers moved across the interface like a pianist, each motion deliberate. The drone responded like it knew him, trusted him. Sienna watched in silence, her awe tangled with regret. You shouldn't have had to come back. His eyes stayed on the screen. I never really left. The drone descended slowly, cutting through the rain until its wheels touched the tarmac with a gentle hiss. The rotors wound down. Silence blanketed the hangar. Then the side hatch opened and a technician stepped out holding hands with 3 wide-eyed children, all safe, all whole, each clutching a Skytide plush toy. Among them was a small girl who ran straight into her mother's arms. Sienna knelt, clutching her daughter, tight breath caught in her throat. Through the glass, she looked up and found Liam standing on the other side. Their eyes met. Her lips formed 2 words. Thank you. Liam gave a small nod, then turned and walked out into the rain. Skytide HQ was too quiet the next morning. No press, no meetings. The boardroom remained locked. In the center of it all stood Sienna, arms folded tightly across her chest, staring at a black screen like she was waiting for it to breathe again. She hadn't slept. Not after the flight. Not after watching Liam walk away like the past hadn't just roared back to life. You're really going to do this? Jordan asked behind her disbelief, threading every word. I already did, Sienna said without turning. Liam Gray has full clearance. Root level, system-wide. No time limit. He's not even on payroll. He was once. The elevator chimed on sub-level 3. Liam stepped out in a gray zip-up and black jeans, face unreadable. He walked like a man used to keeping his head down but whose spine still remembered how to carry command. Maddie met him near the console with a steaming mug. Black. No sugar. Just like before. Liam raised a brow. You sure I'm not just a janitor to you? She smiled. I always knew. They stepped into the control core, circular transparent walls all around cables coiled beneath the floor like sleeping snakes. The room hummed like a living thing. Liam scanned the mainframe. This place got a facelift. 3 security overhauls, AI loops, and Sienna coded the new encryption suite herself. But apparently... Maddie sighed. Not enough to keep out ghosts. Liam knelt by the console. Lines of code flooded the screen. His eyes narrowed. Tell me everything you saw. Whoever built the back door knew our architecture, Maddie said. They didn't sneak in. They rewrote part of the firmware. Clean, recursive. Layers deep. He muttered, so it wasn't a breach. It was inheritance. Sienna's voice came from the doorway. You're saying it came from inside? Liam stood slowly. I'm saying this code existed before you ever took over, before your team rewrote the OS. Her brow furrowed. No one on my current team had that kind of access. No, Liam said, but your father did. 7 years earlier, a younger Liam stood in an identical room typing fast. The door opened. Harlan Rowe walked in with a glass of scotch and that easy entitled grin that only CEOs wore like cologne. You're pushing for redundant firewalls, Harlan said. Why? Because the AI is evolving faster than our protocols. Harlan sipped. Or maybe we just need deniability. Liam turned to him. You want a kill switch? Harlan smiled. No, I want insurance. Back in the present, Sienna's face had gone pale. You think he left that back door? For who? Maybe for himself, Liam said. Maybe for someone else. Either way, someone found it and used it. He straightened. I need access to the data vault, the one mirrored to the remote node. Sienna nodded slowly. Yes, but it's protected behind executive firewalls. Each account is isolated, I know, Liam said, because I helped design them. She blinked. I wrote the redundancy protocol. Under DARPA. Your dad copied it after the Pentagon shot down full AI autonomy. Of course he did. Maddie looked between them. So how do we get through? Liam turned to Sienna. With a key. She opened the safe slowly. Inside was a steel USB drive engraved with the Skytide crest. Her fingers shook as she lifted it. I haven't touched this since the night the board made me CEO, she whispered. He said it was ceremonial. Liam turned it in his hand. Everything in tech is ceremonial until someone uses it to bring down a plane. He plugged it in. The screen lit up instantly. Access granted executive level Euro 1 encryption mode. H, row, legacy, a hidden directory unfolded. Logs, encrypted scripts, even voice notes. Liam played the most recent one. If you're hearing this, it means the code worked. Good. You always were the smart one, Sienna, just not ruthless enough. That was your mother's flaw, too. She shut it off. Silence thickened. Liam said quietly, "He left you a time bomb and made sure you'd never see it coming." Back in the command center, Liam and Sienna loaded the decrypted logs into the system. Line by line, he traced through the exploit hunting the weak point. He found it. A single command buried in loops upon loops of legacy logic. EO trigger node, ND04, J manual, reset required, ND04J, Maddie leaned in. That's the old test node. Where is it now? Jordan scanned the map. It's been disconnected for years. Wait. No, it came back online 2 days ago. Who accessed it? No one answered. Maddie's fingers flew across her keyboard. Then her face went still. Investor credentials, she said softly. Linked to... Sienna turned toward her. Say it. Maddie swallowed. Your father, logged in from the Singapore node. Sienna took a step back like the air had been knocked from her lungs. Liam stood. He's not just behind this. He orchestrated the entire thing. The drone, the sabotage, the kids on board. It was never about tech. Sienna's voice cracked. It was about control. Liam stared at the terminal, then looked at her. Give me 15 minutes and access to the legacy trigger. To do what she asked, though she already knew. To bury this code for good. Her hands clenched at her sides. If something goes wrong... Liam met her eyes. Then make sure Eliza knows her dad tried. Sienna didn't move. Then slowly she nodded. I trust you, Liam. He turned back to the console and began to type. Come on, stay with me, Liam whispered, fingers flying across the console. His eyes locked on the screen where the aerial view of Flight Skytide 9 flickered through static. The aircraft was drifting, hovering dangerously off course. Altitude 200 feet. Control unresponsive. Passenger list 16 VIPs. 1 pilot, 12 children, and Eliza Rowe. Seat 3F. Liam exhaled slowly. Okay, Gray, you built this mess. Now unbuild it. The override module wasn't responding. The saboteur had rerouted core control through a manual trigger node buried deep in legacy code far outside the standard API. Status, Sienna's voice came sharp, tense, clipped. Liam didn't look up. We're in a descent, unprogrammed. I can't correct remotely unless I bypass the shell and inject hard-coded commands. This is analog on a digital bird. English, please, Jordan muttered, sweat lining his brow. Liam glanced up. I'm trying to fly a self-driving jet with Morse code. Maddie swore softly under her breath. Inside the skybound cabin, red light bathed the interior. A robotic voice echoed down the aisle. Autonomous mode disengaged. Stand by for manual input. Children stirred in their seats. Some whimpered. A flight attendant whispered reassurances, but her knuckles were white. The cockpit was empty. The pilot had been called out minutes earlier by an emergency text. That hadn't come from HQ. They drew the pilot out, Liam said. Whoever did this needed an empty cockpit to finish the breach. Sienna's voice went ice cold. They wanted it to fall. No, Liam said softly. They wanted a message. He tapped into the cockpit drone camera. Static flickered. Then the image steadied. Empty pilot seat. Red lights blinking across the console, and, just off to the side, a small auxiliary chair folded up until a little head popped into frame, blonde hair, blue hoodie, Eliza Rowe. Her small voice broke the silence. Liam. Are you there? His hands froze. Then he leaned into the mic. "Eliza, it's me." Her eyes lit up. "You're on the ground, I am. And I need your help, kiddo." There was a pause. Then, "Are we going to crash?" Liam swallowed. "Not on my watch. She's in the cockpit." Jordan stared. "You can't be serious. She's a child. She's in the co-pilot seat," Liam said, "which means she's the only one who can trigger the manual override. This is what they didn't plan for human chaos. She's 8. "She's brave," Sienna said quietly. Liam pressed the comm. "Eliza, look to your right. See a red switch below the throttle bar." She nodded. "Yeah, it says manual off." "Good. You're going to flip it when I say so. Not before, not after. Got it?" Her voice came steady. "Okay." Sienna closed her eyes, whispering, "That's my girl." Liam's fingers flew. "I need exactly 5 seconds. That flip gives me 1 shot to inject the landing code. Early or late and we lose the window." He turned to Sienna. "If this doesn't work, it will." He looked at her. "You're not the man who got people killed," she said. "You're the one who stayed up all night fixing rotors to protect lives you didn't even know. So stop doubting." A beat of silence. Then Liam turned back to the keys. "Let's do this. Eliza," he said into the mic, calm and clear. "When I count to 3, you flip that switch." "Okay," she said softly. "Ready. 1." Sienna held her breath. 2. Jordan looked away. 3. Click. Liam hit enter. Nothing. Then override accepted. Manual flight mode enabled. Cheers erupted in the control room. But Liam wasn't celebrating. He gripped the joystick, stabilizing pitch, dropping flaps, correcting yaw axis. "Give me every ounce of lift, girl." The panels flickered. The AI gave way. Landing gear down, targeting Hudson Strip Bravo. It's narrow, but it's clear. His voice dropped to a whisper. "We're coming home." On the ground, emergency lights painted the runway in gold and blue. Camera drones hovered overhead. Crews stood waiting, and slicing through the clouds like a steel angel. Skytide 9. 300 feet, Liam muttered. 200. He pressed the final sequence. The plane shuddered. Flaps opened like outstretched wings. Wheels touched. Smoke hissed. Touchdown. Sienna gasped. He did it. The plane rolled to a halt. The doors hissed. Oxygen masks swayed. Inside, flight staff collapsed into sobs. Then the cockpit door creaked open, and Eliza stepped out blinking into the lights. A figure broke through the chaos, sprinting toward her. Sienna. She didn't care about cameras or boardrooms. She just ran, dropped to her knees, wrapped Eliza in both arms, and wept. In the control room, no one spoke. Maddie wiped her eyes. He saved them all. Liam leaned back in his chair, breath uneven, just like we used to, with sweat, not circuits. He stood slowly, then turned toward the exit. Sienna's voice followed him through the intercom. "You didn't just save a flight, Liam. You saved what this company was meant to be." He paused in the doorway, framed by blinking light. Then he said quietly, "I didn't do it for the company. I did it for the girl who believed I could." And walked out. Call it what you want, miracle madness, pure luck. But one thing's for sure, Flight Skytide 9 shouldn't have landed. Yet it did. The news anchor's voice echoed from a dozen plasma screens lining the Skytide boardroom. Footage played on loop Eliza stepping out of the cockpit, followed by the now iconic image of Sienna sprinting across the tarmac, collapsing to her knees, wrapping her daughter in both arms. Applause, headlines, talk shows dubbing it the Hudson Angel Landing, and yet, inside the boardroom, silence. Sienna stood at the head of the mahogany table, arms crossed. Her jaw was locked in steel. "We need to talk," said Gregory Trask, the oldest board member, tapping his Mont Blanc pen against a neat stack of notes. "I'm listening," Sienna replied, not blinking once. He glanced down, then up. You allowed an unvetted janitor who was fired for unauthorized access to override a billion-dollar AI aircraft. On live feeds, in front of the world. He saved a plane full of children. And you turned our biggest liability into a Netflix special, snapped Victoria Lorne, head of PR. This isn't inspirational cinema, Sienna. This is a multinational defense tech firm. Exactly, Sienna said coolly, which means saving lives should still matter. The air went tight. Then Gregory dropped the hammer. We're pressing charges, he said flatly. Corporate policy demands it. Unauthorized system intrusion, flight protocol tampering, uncredentialed override execution. The FAA wants someone to blame. Liam Gray is the only viable candidate. Sienna didn't flinch. You're going to prosecute the man who just saved your shareholders from a $12 billion class action. He was terminated. He had no right to be near that control room. He had no choice, she said. The only reason he was even needed was because someone inside this company planted a backdoor that nearly killed my daughter. There were murmurs now, uneasy shifts, shuffling papers. She reached into her bag, pulled out a single envelope. No logo, no return address. This was on my desk this morning. She unfolded the letter and laid it flat. The ink was heavy, deliberate. You should have listened the day you took my chair. Silence protects empires. Break it, and you bury your own name. M. The silence shattered. M. Martin Rowe. Her father. Sienna's hands trembled slightly, but her voice rock steady. I've known for months he was moving off books. But this isn't just rebellion. This was sabotage. Victoria narrowed her eyes. That's an accusation against a legacy founder and former CEO. It's a statement of fact, Sienna replied, and I have the system access logs to back it up. Trask leaned forward. If you go public with this, the stock will crater. The board will face audits. You'll be gone. Permanently. Sienna glanced around the table. These were the same faces who'd once called her the Sky Queen. Now they looked at her like a problem to be solved. She stood straighter. Then let it collapse, she said, because I'd rather rebuild from ash than keep fueling an empire built on silence and fear. The lights of Manhattan shimmered across the 39th floor glass as Liam stood awkwardly by the elevator, still in the same clothes from the day before. Sienna leaned against her desk, arms loose at her sides. Her face was softer now, but tired. So tired. You didn't have to come, she said. I figured you could use someone off the payroll to remind you you're not crazy. A flicker of a smile. You think I'm not. I think you're the only sane one left, he replied. And I've cleaned the floors here long enough to know. She looked out the window. They want to turn you into the scapegoat. I know. FAA, SEC, our own legal team. He shrugged. Comes with the territory. You fly too close to the sun, someone's going to want to clip your wings. She turned to him, really turned and studied his face. You didn't sign up for this. No, he said. I signed up to mop floors, keep my head down, raise my kid in peace. But when you see fire, you put it out. That's not heroism. That's just being human. Her eyes misted. She blinked them clear. You ever think maybe the world needs more janitors like you? He chuckled. Nah, I think the world just needs more CEOs who remember what the ground feels like. A long silence stretched between them, the kind that said more than words ever could. And then her voice soft. I'm stepping down. Liam blinked. What, I'm resigning? After what you just pulled off? She nodded. If I stay, they'll rewrite the truth. He'll walk free. I can't let that happen. You don't have to do this. I do, she whispered, because for the first time in years, I'm not protecting the brand, I'm protecting the truth. By morning, the headlines had already spread. SkyTide CEO resigns, cites internal sabotage. Anonymous janitor credited with saving AI aircraft, FBI confirms. Probe into former CEO Martin Rowe. The world split in half. Some called it theater, Others called it courage, but one video anonymous granny went viral. A nighttime security feed. Liam alone, kneeling by a control panel, whispering to himself, "This rotor shouldn't be spinning. If they don't see it, they'll see it too late. Not again." 10 million views in 24 hours. Hashtag Janitor saved the sky. That evening, Eliza sat cross-legged at the kitchen table coloring. A plane mid-landing. The wheels circled by a giant red heart. There was a knock at the door. Liam opened it. Sienna stood there with 2 paper bags and a white envelope. I figured dinner was the least I could do. He let her in. "What's in the envelope? Something I should have offered you a long time ago." He opened it. "A contract. Advisory Consultant AI Security Division," he read aloud. "Part-time, flexible, remote optional. No cameras, no press, just a way for you to be part of the future, if you want it." He folded the paper slowly. "My daughter said something this morning," he murmured. "She said, 'Dad, maybe now the sky will listen to you.'" He looked up. "Maybe it's time I started listening to it too." "They called me a janitor," Liam said quietly, standing on the courthouse steps as the early morning sun cast long shadows behind him. "Turns out I just cleaned a system no one else had the guts to touch." Cameras clicked, reporters surged forward, but he didn't say another word. Behind him, Sienna stood tall. She wore a muted gray coat, not a CEO anymore, but somehow in this moment more powerful than she had ever been. The world knew now. They knew what had happened aboard Flight Skytide 9, and the world wanted answers. The FBI investigation was now in full force. Martin Rowe's name splashed across every major outlet legacy CEO accused of code sabotage. His offshore accounts frozen. His private jet grounded. His empire crumbling from within. But inside the walls of Skytide Dynamics, the real battle was still burning. 2 days later, in the company auditorium, engineers, janitors, drone techs, HR staff all filled the seats shoulder to shoulder. The tension was thick but hopeful. Sienna stepped onto the stage. No spotlight, no music, just truth. "I was taught," she began, voice steady, "that leadership means protecting the company. But no one ever told me what to do when the company is the thing we need protection from." A hush swept the room. I let a man be dismissed for doing the right thing. I ignored my instincts when I saw signs of sabotage. And I allowed silence to grip the steering wheel while truth sat in the back seat. She paused, then said softly, "Today, that stops." The screen behind her lit up with a single headline, "Transition of Leadership and Full Transparency Audit Initiated." She glanced at the crowd. "And before anyone accuses me of grandstanding, I want you to hear from someone who never asked for this spotlight." She stepped aside, and Liam walked on stage. No suit, no title. Just the same man who used to mop the corners no one else noticed. The room held its breath. "I was just trying to keep people safe," he said. "That's all I ever tried to do." The day we stop listening to quiet voices, the janitors, the coders, the kids, is the day we forget who we're building these machines for. He scanned the crowd slowly. "My wife died in an AI crash because no one listened. I promised myself that if I ever saw danger again, I'd raise my voice even if it cost me everything." The silence broke into a standing ovation. No one told them to stand. They just did. That afternoon, headlines erupted once more. Whistleblower janitor becomes hero of Skytide scandal, FBI links sabotage code to former CEO Martin Rowe, truth over titles, national debate on ethics in AI, explodes online Reddit, threads lit up. X went wild. One post in particular stood out, scanned pages of Liam's old flight safety reports, dated and buried, uploaded by former defense engineer. The caption read, "He warned them once. They ignored him. This time, he saved them anyway." The comments poured in. "Silent heroes are louder than ever now. My dad was a janitor. This man speaks for all of us. If my CEO ever fires someone like Liam, I'm walking out." A movement had begun. We see you, Liam. Dikaiwad Truth deserves a keycard. Eat your hot to clean the system. And somewhere far from the noise in a suburban middle school classroom, Eliza Gray sat in a circle with her classmates holding up a drawing. "This is my dad," she said proudly. "He saved a plane. Not with muscles, with thinking." A kid raised his hand. "Is he a pilot?" "Nope," she grinned. "He used to clean toilets. But he's a hero." Even the teacher wiped away a tear. Outside the classroom, the school janitor chuckled quietly and kept sweeping. Back in Liam's apartment that night, Sienna sat at the kitchen table sipping a lukewarm cup of tea. Liam held a folder in his hands, paper, not digital. Always old school. Inside, it was a letter. "Dear Mr. Gray, your contributions to the safety and oversight of AI-integrated aviation systems have been deemed extraordinary. We would like to invite you to serve as a civilian technical advisor to the FAA's new Ethics and Emergency Response Board." He set the letter down, slowly exhaling. "You think they actually want my opinion?" he asked. "They're scared not to," Sienna said. "You're the only one who walked into that room with no badge, and still walked out holding the world's future in your hands." He looked over at her. "You're not going to disappear, are you?" "I resigned," she said, "but I didn't retreat. There's a difference." He smiled. "You were always the smart one in the room." "I wasn't," she replied softly. "I just had the microphone." She paused, eyes glinting under the kitchen light. "It's time people like you had one too." The next morning, back at Skytide, something new appeared beside the security gates. A sign. "All staff, regardless of title, may submit technical safety concerns anonymously through the Clear Sky portal. Every submission will be reviewed by a mixed board of executives and support staff. In memory of what we almost lost, in gratitude to those who stopped it." Liam's name wasn't on the plaque, but his fingerprints were everywhere, in the culture, in the courage, in the quiet. That evening, the sun dipped low over the skyline. Inside their home, Eliza curled on the couch, flipping through a picture book. Liam leaned on the doorway, watching her. "Daddy, yeah, kiddo. You think people will forget?" He walked over and sat beside her. "They might forget the headlines, but they won't forget what it meant." What did it mean? He looked into her eyes. That it's not about where you stand. It's about when you speak. She nodded and rested her head on his shoulder. Outside, a drone hummed in the distance, one of the new Graybird prototypes. Safe. Tested. Built by people who cared. And inside, a father and daughter sat quietly wrapped in a warmth no machine could ever measure. Liam stood at the edge of the tarmac, staring at the hangar where it had all begun. Same steel walls, same low hum of overhead lights. But something felt different now. Maybe it was him. In his back pocket sat a newly printed security badge still warm from the lamination machine. Gray Liam, Civilian Advisor, AI Systems and Ethics Division. He hadn't asked for it, didn't expect it, but they gave it to him anyway. And for the first time in years, he wasn't invisible. Earlier that morning, a sleek black car had pulled up to his apartment. The driver handed him a cream-colored envelope. No call, no email, just a letter hand-signed by the acting CEO of Skytide and an FAA executive. Mr. Gray, in recognition of your unmatched insight and integrity, we invite you to join Skytide Dynamics as a part-time advisor to the AI Flight Safety Program. You will report only to the Ethics Oversight Board and retain full autonomy over your contributions. We understand your time is valuable. More importantly so is your peace. He hadn't opened it right away. He'd left it untouched on the counter while he made Eliza's breakfast. Now, here he was back at the place where everything had gone wrong, wondering if peace was something he could ever return to. Inside the hangar, Sienna waited by the observation window. Her blazer draped casually over her shoulder, no trace of boardroom stiffness remained. "You showed up," she said, half smiling. "I haven't signed anything yet. You didn't have to. You're already in the system, she replied, tapping the glass. Your old code is still valid. 7 years later. He raised an eyebrow. That's either an incredible oversight or a very intentional design flaw. She laughed. Let's call it intuition. They turned to watch the drone in the testing bay. A prototype of the new Greybird fleet hovered midair, pivoted in place, and landed itself with an elegance that felt almost human. Built with one simple rule, she said quietly. No line of code should ever forget the cost of a mistake. He nodded slowly. That's not a system spec, he said. That's a philosophy. That's the point. She looked over at him. You once told me you stopped coding because no one listened to the warnings. Liam exhaled. I stopped because my wife died reading a safety report I wrote, and nobody ever opened. After that, the silence got too loud. And now he looked out again. The silence feels like permission to speak again. Back home that afternoon, Eliza was waiting on the couch, her knees tucked under her favorite quilt. On the coffee table sat a folded piece of yellow paper. She held it up as he walked in both hands, cupping it like something sacred. This came while you were gone, she said. He opened it. Not from Skytide, not from the FAA. It was from her. In blocky, uneven letters, Dear Dad, I know you don't like flying anymore, but maybe flying isn't the thing that hurt you. Maybe it was stopping. I think you were made to help people, even if they don't always say thank you. You always tell me to do what I believe in. I believe in you. Love, Eliza. He didn't speak for a long time. Then he sat beside her, gently held her hand. You want to know something, he asked. What you're the smartest human I know. She grinned. Smarter than the AI planes. He chuckled. 10 times smarter, and way better at drawing. She beamed and dashed to her room to grab her newest masterpiece. He stayed there, letting her words sink into the place he'd long ago sealed shut. The next morning, Liam walked into Skytide's West Annex where a dozen middle school students were setting up laptops and drone simulators. Kids from the local community center, wide-eyed, eager. Sienna stood at the front of the room holding a whiteboard marker. This is Mr. Gray, she announced. He's the reason this program exists. You're going to learn more from him in 5 minutes than most engineers do in 5 years. A small hand shot up. Wait, is this the janitor guy who saved that plane? Liam chuckled. Guilty, he said, but turns out saving planes is a lot like cleaning floors. You start by noticing what nobody else does. The room erupted in giggles, then applause. Liam crouched beside a girl adjusting her headset at the first simulator. Rule number 1. He said, technology is only as smart as the heart behind it. Outside, a new Greybird drone lifted into the sky, silent, precise, safe. But its most important upgrade wasn't found in its wingspan or codebase. It was in the people who built it. People who now listened. People who questioned. People who had the courage to speak up when something didn't feel right. Etched at the base of the drone, almost invisible, were the words, Gray Protocol, built to protect. Programmed to remember. That night, Liam stood on the rooftop of his building looking out at the city lights. Sienna joined him carrying a small box. I figured this belonged to you now, she said, offering it with both hands. He opened it. Inside was a silver bracelet engraved with a single phrase. You saved my sky. He looked at her, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't do it for glory. I know she said. That's why it mattered. They stood there for a moment. Then she added softly, You've always been flying, Liam. You just forgot to look up. He turned toward her. And you? I'm done chasing the sky, she said. I want to build something on the ground. Something real. She stepped closer, starting with us. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Instead, he reached into his jacket and pulled out Eliza's letter, read it once more, and whispered almost to himself, Maybe flying isn't what hurt me. Maybe it was stopping. Then he held out his hand, and she took it. High above them, a single gray bird crossed the night sky, steady, silent whole. No alarms, no drift, no ghosts, just clean code and a second chance. The sun hung low over the city, casting a golden haze across the rooftops. Atop the Skytide Dynamics headquarters, once a fortress of cold metal and tighter security, laughter now echoed freely. Not from executives or engineers, but from children. Dozens of them chasing drones across the concrete with wide eyes and wind-blown hair. Liam Gray knelt near the helipad, adjusting a set of tiny stabilizers beside a makeshift drone station. "Keep the pitch steady, Sophia," he said gently. "If the drone starts to drift left, don't fight it. Guide it." Sophia, a shy 11-year-old with chipped nail polish and steady hands, nodded and tried again. Her drone lifted, wobbled, then hovered like a curious hummingbird. Cheers erupted. A few feet away, Eliza stood with a clipboard in hand like a miniature flight instructor. "Nice job, Sophia. That's the best launch of the day." Liam smiled. She was growing into her own kind of leader, not the loudest voice, but the one people listened to anyway. From behind, a familiar voice broke the breeze. "Funny, isn't it?" Sienna said. "The same rooftop they once fired you from now has your name on the gate." He stood and looked at her. The wind brushed her hair gently across her cheek. The sun lit her face like the end of a long storm. "I never needed a nameplate," Liam said. "Just enough space to do the right thing." She stepped toward the ledge, gazing out over the city below. "Do you ever think," she asked, "that maybe all the damage we go through, all the losses, are just clearing space for what's meant to be built next?" He took a quiet breath. "Pain empties the room," he said. "So healing can move in." They stood together listening as the kids flew one last round. Overhead, a drone bearing the Graybird insignia sliced through the sky, graceful, precise, and built by the very children now laughing below. One by one, the kids began to pack up. Eliza skipped over, cheeks flushed. "They asked if we're doing this again next month." She beamed. Liam looked to Sienna. "We are right," she smiled. "It's already on the calendar. Graybird STEM Club, first Saturday of every month." Eliza's eyes sparkled. "Dad, they made a logo. Want to see it?" He knelt beside her as she pulled a folded piece of paper from her backpack. It showed a cartoon version of him, mop in one hand, laptop in the other, standing beside a drone with wings shaped like open arms. Beneath it were the words, "Fly with heart," "Code with courage." His throat tightened. Before he could speak, Sienna cleared her throat and reached into her coat pocket. "I was saving this," she said softly. "For a day that felt right." She handed him a small navy blue velvet box. He opened it. Inside was a simple silver bracelet engraved with 5 words, "You saved my sky." S. He stared at it, stunned by its weight. Sienna stepped closer. "You once told me you flew for your country, that you stopped flying because you lost someone. But Liam, you never stopped protecting people, even when it nearly broke you." He looked up. "I didn't save the sky, Sienna. I just refused to watch it fall." And that, she whispered, is exactly what heroes do. A gust of wind swept across the rooftop, lifting a few stray papers into the air like feathers. Below, children's voices echoed with goodbyes, high fives, and the sound of laughter that stuck to the walls like sunlight. Liam turned to Eliza. "Sweetheart," he said, crouching, "you asked me once if I'd ever fly again." She nodded, watching him closely. "I think I never stopped," he said. "I just didn't know what my wings looked like anymore." She wrapped her arms around his neck. "These are better wings," she whispered. "They keep both of us safe." As twilight painted the city in purple and gold, Liam, Sienna, and Eliza stood at the edge of the rooftop looking out. In the distance, the test flight of Graybird 1 appeared, its wingspan catching the last light of day. It glided forward, its flight guided not by ego or automation, but by a system rooted in human hands and human hearts. The drone tilted gently like a salute, then disappeared into the horizon. Sienna slipped her hand into Liam's. So she said, "What now?" He turned toward her, eyes soft. "I used to fly for the Pentagon," he said. "Then I flew for survival. Now." He looked at Eliza, who was waving at the fading drone. "Now, I just want to fly for family." Sienna leaned her head against his shoulder. "And I'll be your horizon." The rooftop lights flicked on warm amber and gentle. Behind them, laughter lingered in the air like a promise that something good had just begun. Liam looked up at the sky, no longer haunted by it, but grateful, not because the danger was gone, but because now he wasn't flying alone. And sometimes, the quietest people carry the loudest courage. The janitor, no one noticed, became the man who saved the sky. If this story moved you, if you've ever known someone who stood up quietly when it mattered the most, or if you have a story of resilience, loss, and redemption, we would love to hear it. Share your story in the comments because your voice might be the one that gives someone else hope tonight. And before you go, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We have a growing community from all corners of the globe, and it's always a joy to hear from you. Whether you're in a quiet town in Montana, the heart of Tokyo, or somewhere along the Yorkshire Dales, you're part of this journey now. If you haven't already, tap subscribe so you never miss a story like this one. Stories of hope, of healing, of unexpected heroes who remind us what it truly means to care. And finally, thank you for spending your time with us. From our hearts to yours. We're honored to tell these stories because sometimes the stories we hear help us rewrite our own. Until next time, keep flying with heart.